This one will sound like such an obvious one to a lot of people, but it's really, really important to recognize and understand your trigger points. And what I mean by trigger points is anything that will create that sense of anxiety or stress or depression or whatever mental instability you might suffer or struggle with. It's important to recognize what causes that trigger. So, for a lot of people, or a lot of people that I speak to, it's quite obvious what the triggers are. So, people I speak to will be like, work's my biggest triggers because I hate my job, or I hate the people I work with, or I hate the drive in the morning because it takes 2 hours and that makes me stressed, or my boss makes me really, really anxious, or the amount of money I get paid for what I do, it gets me down, it makes me feel depressed. Right, so for a lot of people, it is obvious, but not everyone is fortunate enough to recognize what their trigger points are. So I've learned over time what my trigger points are. I had a feeling like I knew what some of them were, but there were some that I just couldn't tell you. So all I did was I just spent a bit of time where anytime I'd feel that overwhelming sense of anxiety come over me, or stress, or even some depression of where I just have an overwhelming sadness, which might not even be provoked by anything. I'd make an extra conscious effort to note down, and I'd do this physically with a pen and paper, and I'd note down what's happened during that time. Like, has anything happened? What sort of environment am I in? Was there a song playing? Was the TV on? Was I watching a specific program? Did an advert pop on the TV? Or had I recently seen someone? Or was it, there's so many things that you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper into. And by doing that over time, you will find more and more information on what your triggers are. And then once you finally establish what your trigger points are, from my perspective, I think it's massively important to acknowledge them and then embrace them, because you have to feel it. I don't like the brush under the carpet sort of scenario where out of sight, out of mind, because it's a load of bullshit that it's always going to be there. You have to deal with it. So part of dealing with something like this, just embrace it. Understand it's going to feel shit, but once you almost have that acceptance, you'll start developing sort of this habit of knowing that it's not going to feel great, but also knowing and realizing it's going to pass. That feeling will pass. So it's a well worth it's well worth doing to be really conscious and aware of your trigger points and what the causes are, because once you figure out your trigger points, even if it's not all of them, you can then start working on them. And that's the key part for me. So from my personal perspective and my situation, from my trauma point one, if you watch a video in my old job, that doesn't cause me any trauma anymore. Like that doesn't become a trigger point anymore. I'm something like 12, 13 years on from that point, so nothing brings back anything bad. um in terms of trauma point number two, again, if you watch that video, it's an obvious one. Of course, is going to be day-to-day triggers. Losing a parent, it's obvious. There's going to be so much every single day. At least 4 or 5 times a day, I'll have a trigger point, but I can handle it now. Like, I know how to deal with it for my own self. So whilst it's there, the trigger points don't cause the mental instabilities. They don't cause the sadness or the more emotional reactions. They're there. I acknowledge it, but I can handle it now. So it's more for me is trauma point three. If you watch that video, it's to do with going through the bad breakup, and that's so much more applicable to me because it's still quite fresh. It's still quite raw, and it's still really, really hard. Like, I'm 18 months or so down the line from everything happening, and it still hurts and it's still hard. Like, I still have days where I struggle big time. And whilst I appreciate that's just testament to how true my feelings were, and to some degree are, because feelings haven't changed. You know, things change, times change, on occasions people change, but if some things, if a love is true, it stays. And I mean, I don't know how long for, because I'm not an expert on this front, but it's still hard, and it all kind of comes back to the whole don't get over it, just get through it. So I'm far from over it, but I'm still getting through it. But I spent a lot of time. I know what a lot of the trigger points can be, and the more they pop up, the more I can deal with them and work on them, and the less they affect me moving forward. So a really obvious one, and everyone's different to me, right? So I'll just make that clear again. This isn't a one fits all. For me, I used to just struggle seeing pictures. Whether it's pictures of me and her, picture of memories, pictures cause and sparks a memory, and that memory then can cause into overthinking or lead you to overthinking, and that can then lead on to the anxieties and the stresses and the depression. So logic said to me, if I don't have access to the pictures and I can't see the pictures then can't be there to trigger a memory. So I deleted all pictures off my phone. Any pictures that I had, completely gone, like deleted forever. That hurt. Like, there was a lot of pictures with a lot of memories, but it had to be done because I didn't have, once I deleted pictures, I didn't have that anxiety of, say, on an iPhone where it pops up with your photo memories, and I didn't have that worry that a picture might pop up, and then when I see that and I get that horrible like pit in the stomach, and then you get like the oof feeling, I stopped myself from coming across that sort of situation. So that really helped, and it applies to so much. So for me, the trauma point then triggers a memory, and it's then down to you whether you want to keep that memory alive or you want to try and bank that memory so that it doesn't crop up. I'm not going to say ever again, but as often. So things like clothes, I've got items of clothes that I used to wear, she would wear, that would trigger memories for whatever reason. I had so many things in my actual house where we spent a lot of time that trigger memories. I had a mega snack cupboard just full to the brim of chocolate, sweets and crisps. And that was a big part of us. And it sounds ridiculous, but I'd open the cupboard and every time I'd get that in the stomach, triggers a memory. And then from the memory, it triggers a bit of anxiety, and it triggers a bit of stress, and it triggers a bit of sadness. And then also, like, just sitting on the couch in the living room, the memories are simple. Like, I love the simple things in life. So for me, just sitting on the couch, feet up, having a cuddle, watching a program, watching a bit of shit TV was just bliss. Like, I loved it. So many memories in the house, so obviously you're not just going to go, right, I'm going to move house, but I did different things. I removed stuff. I was fortunate enough where I was able to do some renovating in the house, and I completely transformed enough of the rooms to just again really reduce the memories. So redid my lounge, and now I walk in and it doesn't hold one single memory from that past. So I no longer walk into my lounge and go, oh, there's the sofa we had so many good times on, and there's the TV we watched so many good programs on. It doesn't exist. So all I've started to do, and all I have been doing, is just removing all of these trigger points, because if I can't see them, they can't spark the memory. And if the memory is not being sparked, it's taking up less space in my head. And if it's taking up less space in my head, it's allowing me to keep on progressing on my journey. So it might seem obvious to you, but it's so important. But then it also comes down to, literally, like I said before, how much you want to get rid of that memory. Because I know some people, and I completely understand it, some people, they want to get through the past or get over the past, but they're not ready to let go. Because when you let go of the past, it's almost like closing the book on that chapter and you having to start a new chapter. People struggle with it. I've seen it firsthand with people. So I get it. So do it when you're ready. Again, it ties into the whole, you genuinely have to want to make a change in order to make a change. So these are just small little bits that you can do that will make it easier. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to cure you and heal you, but I can guarantee it will make it easier, because it's common sense. If a picture triggers a memory and the memory makes you sad, if you can't see the picture, less chance of it triggering the memory, less chance of making you sad. Simple. But look, I hope it works for you. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for you, but if I can do it, anyone can do it.